All right, we're broadcasting live here, and I'm also going on Instagram, which takes a little bit of time to catch up.
Broadcasting live, man. There are no redos, no edits, no oopses. You're gonna get it all. Whatever it is, it's just raw. It's just what it is.
Absolutely. So I hope you're ready for that format. It's a different beast altogether. We're skipping Instagram. Let's get into it. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to host you. And we were just kind of chatting before we pressed go live that we had been, you said this to me when we connected initially. You're like, hey, I'm a big fan of the show, or something like that. Maybe you didn't say big fan, but you were aware of the show and me, which I love when these things kind of happen, because I had been following your stuff on TikTok for like a year.
Well, thank you.
And absolutely, I love it so much. And then I was like, wait a minute, he's 15, 20 minutes down the road.
I love finding that. I think that that's the best thing ever. When you find other people that are already doing the thing that you're passionate about and they're close by, that's good for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there's a reason, right? It was cosmic, right? The stars brought us together.
There you go.
I'm interested to learn how you. I almost asked you this before we were chatting. How'd you end up in Raleigh? Are you from this part of the world?
No, actually, the first couple agencies that I was a part of were up in, excuse me, Baltimore. And then someone that we did an agency with when we first came down to the Triangle had been from the area and was working in Baltimore. And so we just decided to make a switch and we came down and haven't ever looked back. Love it down here.
Absolutely, it's a nice pace of life, and I think it's got a little bit of all of it. I did grow up here. I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, but have been up in the Triangle for quite a while. I took my little, sojourn, my hero's journey to New York to find myself and around the world, and came back. So here we are. What I love most, I think, about your content is you seem to kind of circle around this concept. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this be one of one, right? Your shirt says don't win, dominate, carving out your own lane. I talk a lot about similar things. I gave a TEDx talk about a similar thing, and I'm generally helping smaller businesses, personal brands, etc. But let's just, big picture, and let's lay some groundwork. What do people struggle with most that you see that has pushed you to make that kind of the crux of your content? What do people do? What do they get wrong?
Yeah, here's the thing that they get wrong. And it's great that you would start right there because it's, I think, the crux to the whole problem. They don't realize that people buy emotionally and they justify logically. So they jump right over the emotional part, which is a lot like walking into a bar, seeing somebody that's attractive and asking them to marry you. That's the first thing you say. And they completely get it in that construct. Like that makes perfect sense to them. But for whatever reason, it doesn't make any sense to them the other way around. And so if pick up a magazine, watch a television spot, listen to a radio commercial, you're going to see and hear. I mean, social media is awful for it, but it's all basically the same. It's here's what we do and look at our stuff. Right. And that's the worst possible thing that you can do because it does nothing to reflect why anybody would care about you at all. And the brands that do it well, the ones that stand for one thing and that really own that thing, are the ones that everybody reveres. So there's evidence of the success of this approach everywhere. And yet people are really reticent to try it. They have a really hard time wrapping their head around the fact that that would be good for them. And so I see that as being the big critical thing. I spend the majority of my time not developing the solutions, but helping leadership teams realize that it's not about them. And if you can get them to understand that all of us are just a tool that somebody is using to try to achieve something, then you get yourself out of the way because I'm irrelevant. Nobody cares about Bill Harper. Nobody cares about my agencies. Nobody cares about, like, I'm completely irrelevant. The only time I have relevance at all in the world at all is when I can be of service to somebody else. And the minute that you finally wrap your head around that, you begin having value. Until that time, you're just a self-serving, diluted circle jerk around nothing. Like you're not getting anywhere. So I feel like that's the big lesson of it all. And once you get that construct, then real marketing becomes possible.
I love it. I love it already. Lots of questions come to mind. One that comes to mind is, and I'll fall on the sword. I don't mind doing that, and I suspect that we all, quote unquote, fall into this trap at times. It can be easy to fall back into the trap of putting yourself first. What did you say? Here's what we do, and look at our stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, I fall into this trap often, maybe every week, right? Of like, that's a little too, that knob is a little too turned to me, right? And look at this, look at that. And you kind of alluded to this with all of us are just a tool to help someone achieve something. I love that line so much. How do you avoid falling into that trap? What do you keep in the back of your mind or the forefront of your mind to avoid falling into that trap, to just kind of talking about what you've done, the humble brags that we see out there on social media?
So we're talking about two things simultaneously, and I want to make sure that we're putting a little distance between them. One of them is sales and one of them is marketing. With respect to talking about it, it's very simple. Don't talk about yourself at all, period. End of story. If I'm having a conversation with you and I'm saying, Rain, tell me about your situation. Why, why did you bother taking the call? And you say, oh, well, I'm feeling this way. I'm struggling with this thing. I can't quite reach this goal. I want to think, okay, tell me where you are in that process. Tell me what it is that you think you're fighting against. Tell me what tools you've tried to use. Tell me how you've gotten there. Why didn't they work? What is the thing? It's them the entire time. And then as you begin to talk about, have you tried this kind of approach? Do you have this kind of knowledge? What you're doing is conveying what you know and what things you can be doing. But what you're not saying is, you know what? We've got a great solution. If you buy now during the Kmart Blue Light Special, not only will we do this, but we'll throw in a free toaster oven. Like, that thing ruins the entire connection. The whole point is to say, look, if a skill set that I have, if a resource that I have is valuable to you, then I remain relevant to you. But if what you need is a screwdriver and I'm a hammer, it doesn't matter if I'm the world's greatest hammer, you still need a screwdriver. So I become irrelevant all over again. So the whole point of it is to say, look, if you really want to dominate, not just win in your category, then the whole point of it is to come in and not do the stuff everybody else does. And that means being unique enough to say and accept, I'm not important to this equation. I'm just not, unless there's something I can do that will benefit it. And I think that's just really hard for people to get their head wrapped around. Next time you're pitching somebody, see if you can do the entire thing without ever talking about yourself or without ever opening your portfolio or without ever doing, like, see if you can show how you would solve the problem without ever talking about you directly, specifically. See if you can say, listen, you're missing this piece. You need to have this thing. If we were to work together, that's what we would be focusing on, is giving you these missing elements. You've got a Lego kit and it's missing these 6 pieces. We're going to give you those 6 pieces. This is the process that we would go through to get them. If you're interested in that, then we'll talk again. So radically different approach.
Absolutely. Such a great challenge as well, because is there a world where you can convey how you may help someone through your stories, your experiences of the things that you've learned. So talking about yourself, but with the aim of helping them. But it seems to be that you're suggesting, like, yeah, even remove that.
That's meeting 2. Like, if you just say meeting 1, the whole point of the first 30-minute get together is to say, let me understand you, your problem, what's important to you, your vocabulary, how you have stressed about this in the past, what's keeping you up at night. My entire strategy for first meeting is, let me just understand you. That's it. That's the whole thing. Now, at the end of that, what I'm going to share along the way is a couple of thoughts of, hey, would this be helpful? I was talking to a group yesterday in Mexico City. Super cool guys, really great concept, and they've done a typical visionary thing. They've popped up 6 businesses when they really should just have 1. And so they were all over the place, like, oh, this thing, and it kind of relates to that, but we can't figure out how, and da-da-da-da-da. And I just did a workshop with them in that 30-minute window to just say, what if you looked at it like this? I've seen other businesses that have fallen prey to the visionary field, the warped distortion that is, we can conquer everything all at once. So it's like, okay, so let's back that up just a little bit. Given what you've told me is important to you, and given the fact that you're new and you need to put revenue wins on the board, what if you did this piece first and then surrounded it with those other pieces and did them in 6 months or in 8 months or in 10 months? And this way you could do this. And then if you were going to do that, how would that change your operations around this and this and this? Before you even get to marketing, let's make sure that you've got something that you can appropriately market. Otherwise, you're just throwing your money out the window. The amount of trust that's earned in that conversation is radically different than, boy, do we have a solution for you. And we did that for Coca-Cola and Coke loved it, so you should love it. That, and your bullshit light goes off in the back of your head and you're like, geez, I'm being sold. I hate being sold. Stop selling me. If I can help you, then you're going to help me, because you're going to say, hey, when it comes time for me to do the thing that we've been talking about, you earned my trust enough to have a serious conversation. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to hire us, but it means that we're at least in the consideration set. So we suddenly went from, I need a screwdriver, to, I need a screwdriver that looks like the one Bill sells. Let's see, is Bill's particular brand of screwdriver an exact match for my need, or is it just, it gave us enough information to know what it is I'm looking for? This is Miracle on 34th Street, right? If you can't buy it at Gimbel's, we're going to get you over at Macy's. It's the same as it ever was. Like, stop selling, start helping. Like, that's the whole thing. If you want to accelerate growth and gain scale, stop selling and start helping people, and they will reward you by coming back around. In some cases, 6 months later, a year later, tomorrow, 5 minutes from now, and they'll say, hey, here's my problem. Sounds to me like you've got a good head on your shoulders. Help me fix this.
I love that point that you just said there at the end, about basically being patient. You don't know when it'll come back. I've had that so many times where I've had an initial call with someone. Maybe they chose a different path. 6 months later, even 12 months later, they come back. And it's an interesting situation when that happens. But it doesn't happen if you don't consistently, put that value out there.
Well, not to get too, whatever about it, but let go, man. Like, just let go. Like, what and it's funny how different people describe it different ways, right? Gary Vaynerchuk, everybody's Gary, he talks about it in terms of jab, 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 cross or hook or whatever his book title was. But the whole idea was like, I give, then I ask, right? And other people talk about it in terms of like, ask before you tell, or, there's like, Drucker had a way to do it, like everybody's got a way to talk about it. But the secret is that we're all describing the same tree on the same hill. Like, if I set a coffee mug down in front of you and I was sitting in a different spot, I would say, where's the handle? And you'd say, it's on the left. And I'd say, no, it's on the right. Same damn cup. What we're doing is we're all coming at it from our own personal perspective. But the lesson we've learned, the scaffolding of relationship and trust and why anybody cares, is so but simple once you stop making it complicated. I want to know that you have my best interests at heart. The only way you're going to do that is by listening first. If all you're trying to do is wait patiently to pounce on me, I don't trust you. Like, it couldn't get any more simple. This is playground economics. I hit the ball, you picked it up and rolled it back to me, and I said, thank you. Like, this is not a complex structure. But then we wrap it up in things like money, career choices, internal politics, whatever other BS that we're trying to do, self-importance, all the dumb stuff that all of us did, and I in particular, when I was a young man, just so that I could make sure that I tried every stupid avenue before I figured something about life out. Ultimately, you come back to the same thing. We're all just trying to move forward. The question is, does what I know and what I do help you to move forward or not? If it's not, I need to move out of the way. If I can recommend somebody else, fantastic. You're going to boomerang back when either you know somebody that needs what I do, or your situation changes, or what have you. So really, it's a question of like, how quickly can we either provide the solution or get out of the way and help somebody find their path to the thing that they're trying to do.
And how do you present yourself, or how do you show up differently, or do you show up exactly the same in terms of creating content?
In my opinion, it's the exact same way. I shouldn't work on social media. I shouldn't. I don't use hooks. I don't script. I don't practice. I just turn it on and I say, I was thinking about this particular thing today, or here's something that somebody was just asking me, and if it's of interest to them, it's probably of interest to somebody else, and I'll post it. And I've been rewarded well for that. You know, we have 105,000 followers now, and that's in the last year, which I'm being told is pretty great. So I'm like, okay, fantastic. It's brought in new business. It's brought connectivity. I've met a wealth of new people. Like, what surprised me the most about TikTok was how it went international. I've spoken to every continent at least 5 times now, you know, and it's amazing. Like yesterday, I got a call yesterday morning from Belgium. Like that's cool. Like that's awesome. Right. And so I think if we look at social media for what it really is, which is the world's biggest cocktail party, you can't go and say something dull and boring. Like if I showed up and I was like, oh, well, by the way, I've owned several agencies and I've won some awards. Like, who would listen? Nobody would listen. Hell, my mom wouldn't listen. Who cares? The whole idea is to go in and say, who are you? What are you about? What's going on? And then if there's something relevant that you can share that's of interest, that's meaningful to the moment, then share it. And if not, shut up and listen and ask some more interesting questions.
What are the experiences in your life or influences that led you to this line of work, do you think?
I'm not quite sure that I get your question. Ask again.
What led you to doing what you do?
Failing. Failing a whole lot. I'm madly in love with structure and organization, and I am madly in love with connection. So those two things, I was trying to find a way to get to them. So I started off wanting to do mechanical engineering. I was madly, madly in love with Pininfarina's work in the automotive industry. I'm a horrendous sheet metal junkie. Anybody who knows me, I've owned 50 cars. Like I can't get enough sheet metal. So I'm all about cars and mechanics and working on them. And what I loved about that was that it brought together the beauty of the sheet metal and the design, plus the function of the engine and the systems that work to make a car go. Yeah. But anyway, that same mechanical interest exists in the business world, with all of those things happening in my world in two particular places. One of them was marketing advertising, which is what I fell into. The other was private equity. If I wasn't married and had a family, and I wasn't afraid to be a complete, like, throw yourself into it workaholic, I'd work with venture capital or private equity. The idea that you would buy into 3 to 5 companies for a 3 to 5 year window and turn them around is like my particular drug of choice. Like, I would never sleep. I would never go home. I would be there doing that. I would be excited every single day about every single decision that we were making. That to me would be like the crack of business. So I don't let myself go quite there. Advertising is a close second. It's the Demerol to my morphine, right? Like it's the thing that I can get away with without sacrificing everything in my life. But it's fantastic. You meet so many interesting people with so many interesting challenges, and the things that they want to do and the way that they want to share it and how they want to convey it is a new puzzle every time. It never gets boring. It's like being paid to play with crayons. It's great.
All right, this opened up a whole nother door to the conversation in my mind. I love this so much, and I was gonna bring it back. We're talking about, for lack of a better expression, kind of the intellectual and the emotional. You said, what was the word you used when you said this and connection were the two things that interest you? Structure.
Well, structure and connection.
Organization, structure, and connection, which many people view as completely, left side, right side of the brain, completely polar opposite. And I've always been swimming around this concept of the balance, right? Of the yin and the yang, the heart and the head. In the storytelling lab, I say the art and the science. So I love this topic. And what I was going to ask you, one of the first things you said was, and I'm paraphrasing, people decide emotionally and justify logically. Was that something?
Yeah, they choose emotionally and justify logically, which, by the way, belongs to Socrates, not me. It's been stolen and repenned over and over and over again, but it doesn't belong to me at all.
What's that guy know?
Yeah, that guy. Standing in sandals on a rock.
Seriously. Have you seen his clothes? Okay, so where I was going to go with that, because I hear this often, or like I'll play the devil's advocate or the troll in the comments, my stepfather was an engineer, electrical engineer, so I always clashed with the way he viewed the world because nothing was aesthetic, right? It was all functionality and practicality.
Yeah.
So I know engineers are like that. I'm very interested that that was a world that you are a part of. So let's dive into that first thing you said a little bit more. Is like for someone like that who's very much like, no, 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 I look at price only, or I look at the facts only. I only make decisions rationally and logically. Do they really choose emotionally? And if so, tell me more about that.
In my opinion, the emotion that they have is about the precision of the structure. So let's look at Geico. Geico is a great example for this because they did exactly that. So here's Geico. Geico is a government employee insurance company. That's where they originally were as a husband and wife team, whatever, and they made it to moderate success. But no one was paying any attention to them. In 1990 or 91, I forget, when the new CEO came in and said, "Hey, no, 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 we're gonna turn and go to consumer." If you fast forward from that, you'll find some really interesting insights about how they think about their consuming audience. So the first play was the Gecko and the 15% or more in 15 minutes or less. These are two Legos that are easy to snap together. Your time is worth money, and we know you like money. So we're going to snap those two Legos together and say, you're going to get 15% or more in 15 minutes or less, and it's going to be lovely. Okay, now they went out with that. They did this cute little character. Cute little character leans on British sounding vocabulary. People go, oh, it must be smart because da, da, da. Wonderful. People come, but not enough people come. I mean, despite the fact that they disrupted the entire category, which is a whole story unto itself, not enough people came. So they go back out to do research, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's pretty obvious as you take a look at it. They say, why aren't people coming? Well, they interview some people and they say, well, listen, I really like the idea of 15% or more in 15 minutes or less, but I'm snagging on that 15 minutes or less thing. You might be able to give me a quote in 15 minutes or less, but I'm terrified about moving from here to there because I think it's going to be a big problem. No, 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 they say. It's so easy, a caveman can do it. So now all of a sudden you've got this construct that's going after the set that won't move. But they had another set that nobody ever really talks about, which is the bundle set. And if you remember the stack of money with the eyeballs on it, totally no frills. It's the part of the campaign nobody pays any attention to except us, like ad dorks. And when we're taking a look at it, it was so obvious. This little stack of happy money belongs to the people that understand that when you bundle, you save. No frills, no cavemen, no high production, no nothing. This is the stuff you found in the back of magazines and on billboards and in radio commercials radio commercials. But it's just like, this is happy money that comes from stacking these things. That campaign, which was not high profile that way, was all designed, in my opinion, for people that were just like your dad, right? These are people who are all about function over form. They're like, I get it. I get that money if I bundled this way. That simplicity for them is what I saw in engineering school that made the engineers excited, whether it was code or mechanics or civil or electrical. The thing that they all liked was the harmony and balance of well-written, well-executed X, whatever X is. So instead of focusing on the story, which they see as fluffy, superfluous waste, instead it's see how much balance and harmony and efficiency we got when we did it this way. It's still a story. It's just a story that's relevant to that mindset, which represents like 12% of the world, as opposed to the 80+% that wander around going, hey man, tell me a really good story, because that's how I connect with other people and other entities.
Absolutely. And if you pull that thread, it still probably plays to their emotions anyway of reducing anxiety or giving them confidence.
Yeah.
It's still hitting them here somewhere.
Right. Because we can't
through...
help it. The way we make decisions, the way the brain was developed came in 3 steps. Step 1 was instinct, right? Step 1 is I'm hungry, I eat, I'm threatened, I fight or I flight, like that's that. Then the next level is the part that governed our behavior. So I'm hungry and my good friend Rain is eating a sandwich, and I don't pick up a rock and beat him over the head with it because that would be unacceptable to our social structure. It would hurt me in the long run. But those 2 parts of the brain don't have language. It's not until later that the way the brain developed, we began to do language. So everything we are is storytelling to explain the choices that we make. So the on-off switch choices that we make down at a binary level that are then governed by the whether or not it's good for me in the long run level are then justified by the language that we tell ourselves. I see the Harley, I want the Harley. I tell myself a story about how having the Harley is a good idea, or I deserve it, or whatever. I see the politician, I disagree with the politician, I tell myself the politician's an idiot. We make this same decision-making thing over and over and over again, which is why storytelling is so fundamentally important to the way we do anything. You go to a cocktail party and you meet somebody and you decide they are a jerk or they're your new best friend. Story sharing, that's it. Same exact thing for every subject, every religious thing you believe in, everything. They are all the way that we convey our value system through the stories that we believe in. It is so fundamental as to be the construct of our ability to survive together as a community, but it's not taught well. Hey, Harvard, I'm coming after you because you don't do it well. And yeah, I've been through your roster and I've seen the people who are teaching it. And as Harvard goes, so does the rest of the MBA programs in the world. And I'm telling you now, with the exception of I'm from Evanston, so this is going to sound real like inside baseball, but with the exception of groups like Northwestern and groups like that have a dedicated Kellogg's section to that sort of stuff, most of the time it's like, hey, come learn all this stuff about business. Here's your SWOT analysis, whatever. And then, oh yeah, before you leave, make sure to run down the hall to those goofy guys and take that marketing 101, 102 class and just check those boxes. But the real important stuff is over here. And that's translated through the way businesses behave. So if you want to make a strong connection and really grow with your target audience, you're going to have to get in touch with your feelings, or more importantly, what's important to them. Because once you understand what they value, you own them, because you know just what stories they need to hear in order for them to actually see and hear you. And that's what everybody's missing.
You use this term strategic storytelling a lot in your content. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, we actually trademarked it. It's, in my opinion, strategic storytelling is not the pursuit of viral video one-off stories. A pooping unicorn is lovely, and I think that's great. But what in the hell are you going to build on it? Yeah, it got eyeballs, but that's the problem right now. Nobody has any patience anymore because they're all trying to get to an answer 10 minutes from now. And that approach is not sustainable. You burn people up, you burn resources up. You need to build towards something. You cannot become Arnold Schwarzenegger by running to the gym for 3 days because you felt like going to the gym for 3 days and then get pissed off that you don't look like that. Eddie Murphy did not become the funniest man alive by doing, 2 nights a week on a stage and then going and doing, carpentry 3 other days of the week. He went and said, that's the thing I want to achieve. This is the path I'm going to do to take it. And now I'm going to stay disciplined and consistent enough to actually achieve it. And for whatever reason, digital and social has made everybody think that that fundamental reality of the fabric of the universe is suddenly avoidable. I got news for you from the old white guy in the corner wearing the "Don't Just Win, Dominate" shirt. It's bullshit. You can't circumvent the fabric of nature. Even if you have a viral video, even if you thought that this is going to happen overnight, even if you watched the Dollar Shave Club story and told your kids, I'm going to do it just like that. It's a shooting star. It's 1 in a billion that it happens that way. And the behind the scenes stuff and the distribution model uniqueness and all these things have to align just right for those things to happen. And all of it demands consistency, and it demands structure, and it demands intent. And until you have those things, you got a pipe dream that you're telling yourself, and that's great.
Take it easy on him, Bill. Take it easy on him.
No, man. No, I got to hurt him, Hammer. I can't let him go, because that's the thing. They show up at these poor clients show up, and I'm talking about $500 million companies down, and they come wobbling, sobbing, bruised, cut, lied to, disenfranchised, hugging their data sheets, wondering how and why it all fell apart. And we have to take those bruised and battered souls and try to patch them back up again to go back into the fight, because they believe this bullshit. And they come out now and they're like, but I chased Bigfoot and I never could find him, and I'm broke now, and my job's on the line and it's not going to work. And like they're looking in the wrong place. They're structuring it the wrong way. You can't undo what it takes to do this. There is no shortcut to becoming physically fit. Like, I don't care what supplement you take. I don't care what guru you follow. I don't care if you hung upside down naked in a tribe of mushroom eating bats for a month because you read somewhere that it was going to make all the difference. Still got to go to the gym every day until it happens. Sorry.
This is, I wrote that down earlier when you were you were saying something similar. You know, there's a million different ways to get in shape, right? That people have my 5 steps to do this, my, diet, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately it's the same simple thing. Like you said, what did you just say? You can't circumvent the fabric of the universe. It's the same thing as it ever was, move more, eat less. And yet, but here's the issue. And this comes back to exactly what we're talking about. There is some reason why I have to, and you have to develop Bill's strategic, weight loss and Rain's whatever approach, even though it's the same damn thing, which is move more, eat less, because somewhere in there, your version of it or your name of it and the way you approach it connects with another potential customer or client, and mine is a little bit.
Can I stop you there?
Please.
I don't think that's true.
Okay, tell me.
I don't think that's where we win at all.
All right, go.
Our stuff is so like other agencies' stuff in terms of the nuance of it. You have to gather insights. You have to do the recon. You have to test the idea. You have to make sure the idea will last for a long time. And then you have to creatively execute it in a way that is on budget and is sustainable. Don't care what you call it. Don't care what you do. Those are the fundamental basics of what it is. I think we win with this story right here. Stop trying to win. Win is fleeting. Win is, oh my gosh, we did a social post and we got 15 million likes. Oh my gosh, we did an Oreo cookie thing at the football game and like a billion people looked at us. Did it move the needle? Did it sell? Was it scalable? Did it sustain anything? I think we win here. I think we win in getting people's attention off the now. The short game has become so pervasive. Nobody's thinking about long anything. So I believe that, and that's certainly been the way that we have been talking about it. And it's not right for everybody. Some people are still so in love with chasing the right now. They're convinced that they can buy some keywords and some SEO and some quick hit creative stuff, and that they can just literally force their way into success. I think that's where we win. I think once the trust is earned on, let me explain how this really works and why you're not getting where you are, the process is almost secondary. It's like, here are the steps you have to go through to get there. But cute names, different structure, is that really where we're winning?
Okay, a lot to say. First, I love the concept. What you're basically saying, it's kind of like the old cliche of like, we lost the battle, but we won the war, right? Everybody's focused on the battle.
You got it.
We won. We had a great post. Or there's a concept of Rick Rubin mentioned this in his latest book, but it's not original to him, of like, stop focusing on the hit and focus on the catalog, right? Like your lifelong collection. Stephen Pressfield talks about it with books. It's like, stop worrying about trying to make one a bestseller. Work on, building a catalog.
But let's just add to that list. Gary Vaynerchuk is finally now talking about it. He got on the other day. Oh, well, I don't care about the number of people that see my views anymore. Now I'm talking about long game. So long game is now part of his vocabulary. Let's forget about the stage for a minute. I was just at a digital summit, the annual convention in Raleigh for all things digital. And they parked it at the very end of the last day, which was, of course, LinkedIn came and I did a post about it. LinkedIn came and did a presentation where, in working with Nielsen data, they have proven that performance marketing only ever will reach the 5 to 8% at the bottom of your potential conversion set. Even LinkedIn, I have the slides. They wouldn't share the slides because, they're LinkedIn and they make their money doing the exact opposite of what they've just said. But I've got the slides from the presentation. They came in and they were like hat in hand, like, so here's the thing. You can't do it this way. There's not enough people because, as I say, if I ask you if you want to buy a Honda or a Voodoo, which one are you going to buy? And you're always going to tell me a Honda. And when I ask you why, you're always going to say, because I never heard of a Voodoo. Everybody that's been ignoring the awareness top end of the funnel is getting shafted because nobody knows to buy their product. And they're so convinced, they've convinced themselves so thoroughly that someone is magically going to do a search and it's going to bring up a query and they're going to go, oh, I've never heard of them, but boy, let's try something new. What rock are you living under? So anyhow, I've totally got on sidetrack, but I can't help it because it's like, it's so ridiculous when you actually stand back and look at it. It has to be long game. That's the, yeah. And of course you want to do incremental wins toward the long game. Traction, EOS, Reddit, get it, 90 days. I'm not an idiot in that. But what I'm saying is if you don't have long game in your strategy, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Like, where are you going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's not mutually exclusive, right? It's not one or the other. It's part of your strategy. And yeah, it should probably lead the strategy, but yeah, you're right. So often people neglect that. What are your favorite brands, or what are your favorite stages a brand might be in to work with? How do you approach that in terms of clients?
My favorite brands to work with are the ones who are in a particular spot. They are growth minded, they're pissed off, and they have something to prove. These are no longer the ones who are afraid. Because that's what happens. A business gets some momentum, and then all of a sudden they start protecting their momentum and they stop being brave. Okay. This happens all the time. And then you go in and you suggest something to them and they go, oh no, we can't do that. Nobody's done that. Nobody does that. And you say, yeah, but didn't you tell me you wanted to be the apple of your category? Didn't you tell me you wanted to be like Liquid Death? And they go, yeah, but that works for them. And you go, okay, I won't even stay in the room with those conversations anymore because I know the outcome. The outcome may be tomorrow. It might be 3 weeks from now. The outcome is we're not moving forward. So why waste the time? Instead, what I want is I want the team that's like, these guys, to quote a Bill Murray line from a movie Tootsie a long time ago, these guys just came in out of the rain and are just looking to get it like somewhere dry. Like they don't even care about my play. Like they just want to come in. These are people who have been through the ringer. They're like, you know what? If I get lied to by one more specialty agency, if I have one more like faulty, like doesn't make any sense, trust me, I'm going to get this thing done. Like if I have one more of those things, I'm going to go postal. I need somebody that's finally going to come in and put the pieces back together and actually help me get somewhere. I've let go of the people that don't make sense. I have tightened up my belt. I'm ready. I'm ready now to actually go do it. Show me a path. When we get to show me the money mentality, where it's like, I don't care anymore, just give me a tool that will really work. Those are the people that I like because they're serious and they'll do it. And those are the ones that succeed. So those are my favorite types of groups to work with. I like the ones who hate me when I walk in the room. I like this. If arms are crossed, they're 15 minutes late to the meeting and they're pissed off that they had to meet with me at all, they're perfect. Because those are the people that are like, I don't believe you. I don't believe in this process. I don't believe that it's going to work. I don't believe in any of you guys are all a bunch of lying, cheating, thieving bastards. Perfect. Sit down across the table from me. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you back from all the lies that you've been given and show you a structure that you can actually go, you know what? That makes sense. Like I can't poke a hole in it. And if I can get you to a place where you can't poke a hole in it, you feel the thing that you really are looking for, which is hopeful. What you're really looking for from a guy like me is hope that there is change that's going to actually happen. And I think that's where it gets good. As for brands that I think are doing it really well, Heinz just released a new thing that is so brilliant, where they show people asking for ketchup. It's great. Like there's still pictures of people at a table. The food's just been delivered and they're holding their hand up. And everybody knows exactly what it means. Like you've been that guy that's like, oh, well, wait, I need ketchup on the table. Like that moment is so universally shared. It's brilliant work.
That
Brilliant work.
I love that so much. Matthew Dix, who wrote a book called Storyworthy, talked about how great stories. He was, I think, referring to movies in this chapter, but they can all be reduced to a 5-second moment, like the whole movie.
Yeah.
And he gave examples of that, just a tiny little moment of that is the crux of the story. And that's exactly what they've done there with Heinz, with that just
Yeah.
teeny, minuscule moment that conveys, so much. That's the last piece that we need for this meal to be fantastic.
And that's the thing that I think is so universally misunderstood by brands who quote unquote haven't gotten there. They think I can't do that until I become Heinz. And I say again and again and again to them through case studies and through training and through everything else. No, they became that way because they told stories like that. That's like saying, I'm not going to tell really funny jokes until I become as popular as Eddie Murphy. No, you become popular like Eddie Murphy because you told great jokes. Like, I don't understand how this isn't so obvious to the world, but for whatever reason, it's not. And so that, again, in my opinion, it gets back to the safety thing. I'm protecting our thing. I don't want to take too many chances. I want to rock the boat. But greatness comes from rocking the boat. Greatness comes from being willing to say something different, but still strategically grounded. BBH refers to it as zigging when others zag. And I think John Haggerty nailed it on this regard because it's exactly right. Their icon for their brand is something they actually designed for Levi's years ago, which was one black sheep walking this way in a sea of white sheep going the other direction. And it so perfectly summarizes the bravery necessary to stand out from the crowd. When leadership teams look online and they go, oh, well, this is how all of our competition is doing it, so that must be the way we're supposed to do it, they're literally standing in the way of the very thing they're trying to achieve. And they just don't know it.
Please flesh that out a little bit more. Elaborate if you can't. I mean, because that is something we see so often. It's like, well, that's what they're doing. I have to copy that, and it is hard for people to go the other way. But sell me on why that's so important to make that hard. And you use the word brave, and I agree with you there. That hard and brave decision to go the opposite direction of the other sheep.
So there's the simplest way to say it is you can't be the lead singer if you're part of the choir. Like, that's the easiest way that I know to say it, but that's theoretical and people don't always get that. There is no spoon. This is the greatest line ever written. There is no competition. The minute that you accept competition, you stop competing with yourself, and competing with yourself is the only thing that matters at all. Your voice is unique. Nike can't compete with anybody else because there is no one. At $46 billion, they're larger than their top, 3, 4 competitors combined. There's no one else to look to. They have to make their own way. And the more unique you are in the solution and the messaging and the rest, the less of a commodity you are. So, if I'm looking for pens and every pen looks exactly the same, writes exactly the same, whether I tell myself or everybody else, yeah, but our product is better and we use better plastics and we use better ink and, we care more and our people are better trained. I'm like, who cares? I need a pen. I don't need a, dissertation on your company. So the whole idea here is like, what makes you unique? Why should I care? And when we look and sound just like everybody else, we are literally teaching consumers to see us as a commodity. That's what happens. So when you look and sound just like everybody else, congratulations, you are now worth the same thing as everybody else, which means you are all in a race to the bottom. You've got to find your own voice.
Now I'm thinking about the pen example, and I would personally enter a business that my heart wasn't attached to. But there are plenty of people that work in businesses that do. Let's say they sell pens. I don't know why that's their one product, but it is. If you're in a business that is boring, we'll call it, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you aren't, it's not your life's purpose or passion to have been there. How can you still approach that with these tactics and these strategies to make your pen stand out?
Because the question ultimately is, what type of pen buyer are we selling to? Does this person want comfort? Because if I knew that this was the most comfortable pen in the world, then I would look at them that way. Look at the car industry. And I'm a car guy, so it's really hard for me to use this, but it's true. Cars are the same. You put your stuff and your people in them, and you go from here to there and back again. None of them bend the space-time continuum. None of them fly. None of them solve, world hunger. Like, they are cars. Now imagine trying to sell a Porsche to a Prius person or a Prius to a Porsche person. Good luck. The idea is to say this car, this pen, this whatever stands for one interest thing. I did a video on selling a Bic pen, and I said, there are multiple levels of this. The first one is, hey, we've got a pen and it's great and it comes in a bunch of colors and you should buy it. Like, that's what everybody does, and that's at the bottom. But now imagine that you looked into the category and you found that construction workers frequently had to write on a clipboard looking up. And so as they were looking up, they were taking notes. Well, the average pen won't write upside down. So let's say that a pen company came out and said, we make pens for awkward situations. We make pens for people in space. We make pens for people that have to write underwater. We make pens for people who have to do, write on slippery surfaces. I don't know, whatever. And the whole idea was our pens satisfy this one particular need. The value of your pen just went up 10x. Because what you've done is you've said, I'm not just about making pens. Bic's got that. I don't need to compete with Bic. What I need to do instead is I need to say, this is a set of pens for people who are in these situations. There is more than enough money for you to buy your private island for selecting a subset group. It's just that management doesn't think about it that way. Leadership teams tend to think, I'm for anybody who would ever use a pen. And the more they do that, the more they lessen their ability to be valuable to people because they don't stand for anything. The story that they're telling is, we're disposable pieces of plastic junk. It's not worth more than 25 cents because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't, like, why should I care? I need a pen. I don't know, that one. But now all of a sudden, if you're a contractor and you're doing this all day long because you can't get your pen to write upside down, the pen that's for people with unusual circumstances suddenly becomes really cool. Oh, you guys think about me. That's relevance. Now I really appreciate that. If you then take that message a step further and you make it, we hate awkward situations where you can't express yourself or whatever, all of a sudden now you're telling a story up there. Snickers did that. Snickers started off like everybody else did with, we've got caramel and nougat and 12 peanuts in every candy bar. And then they moved up to Snickers always satisfies. Right. And there was like, okay, well, now we're off the feature and benefits to what we stand for. But the Betty White commercial that everybody remembers, you're playing like Betty White. That's what your girlfriend said by Betty White in a college pickup game. That was, you're not yourself when you're hungry. They pushed past themselves to create an understandable and relevant circumstance we can all relate to. And in having done that, suddenly Snickers becomes a great meal in your pocket for when you don't feel yourself or you're not at your best because you're hungry. That's storytelling. So like for these brands, if they can understand that construct, they can get themselves to a place of telling a unique story, and that's when they'll win.
That was a perfect little story about Snickers. We're almost out of time here, pal, but I just wanted to ask you, I know I'm part of a startup right now, first time for me to be a co-founder. I've been solopreneur for like 20 years, and we are going about it in the right way, I believe, biasedly. But I know a lot of companies, especially at that delicate stage, not only at that delicate stage, neglect branding. Mm-hmm. They're focused on, runways and surviving and building a product, et cetera, all of those critical things that happen at that tumultuous time of an early stage startup. Why branding? Why is branding so important? Because I think a lot of people still overlook that, or I see this more often, maybe like that's something we'll handle then, but it's not important now.
The structure that makes brand work begins with sales. That's the truth. So while people tend to think of it as a marketing tool, in truth, it is a communication fundamental. If you understand how to talk about the circumstance in a way that's relevant to people. Like, we have a brand new company. Our company focuses on creating pens for unusual situations. That's branding. That's fundamental nugget number one of brand. Why are we unique? Why are we different? What's our long game strategy? That's brand strategy. To then take it into marketing execution, advertising execution, social media execution, et cetera, is simply another channel. But brand actually begins with the sales effort, because the message that comes out of the salesperson is the fundamental reflection of why we exist, which is in essence exactly the story that marketing is trying to tell. Marketing is nothing more than a sales effort made mass. So actually, brand is critical all the way down to that first bit, because if you are telling a story that adequately and appropriately reflects what's important to you and why you're doing it, not what you've made, not what the features and benefits are of your solution, but why you exist, the problem you're solving, and who you are good for and why, that is the essence of brand. So it's critical from day one. Otherwise, you're just talking about your product.
Perfectly said, my friend. Last question. I know now with your TikTok fame,
I am. I am anything but TikTok famous.
no,
That's
he's an
Kardashian.
influencer, folks. He's got brand deals. I saw him peddling some tchotchkes on the TikTok shop.
Just the shirt. If you want to buy the shirt, you can get the shirt online. That's it.
Yes, that's the tchotchke. I've been seeing some of the people buy that shirt. It's an awesome shirt. It seems like you've been working more with, and this is an assumption, of course, with personal brands, perhaps solopreneurs or smaller brands through that channel, whereas your historical work has been with multi-million-dollar companies. Is that accurate, first of all?
It is and it isn't. Brand Boss came from, so WMH was handling businesses between 25 million and about a half a billion. When TikTok started doing its thing, we needed to do something that would include groups under 15 million. So groups from napkin note startups to about 15, 20 million. Mm-hmm. So universally, that is true.
Got it.
However, we have had companies as large as $500 million reach out to us through TikTok about brand. So it's a surprising thing. Now, the majority of them are 25 to 30 million and under in terms of their top line revenue. So there's a large swath of like $10 million, $20 million, $25 million, like that zone. There's also a fairly significant group of like startup groups that are, we're just 1.5 million this year, or we're just at 2, so there's kind of like these buckets. There's like a group that just needs some kind of like, how do I even begin thinking about that? That's at the first stage. And then each of the rest of those groups is all actually struggling with the same problem. They're just struggling with it at a different ability to execute, but it's the same need over and over.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was going to drive the question is it a similar approach? Are they struggling with similar problems? If you are a small business, even a solopreneur, what can they learn? Because I think often they look, well, I'm not Coca-Cola. I could never do what they do, or Nike or whomever. What can a smaller brand learn from, steal from, emulate from the brands that get it right when they don't have the resources? That's where I'm going with it.
And that's what I was talking about a minute ago with this begins at the sales level. What they can learn is that interesting and relevant are interesting and relevant, whether you are one person who's doing this as a side hustle or you are Coca-Cola. The more you understand and take the time to craft the messaging, the faster you will grow. Because all the channels are just channels. Social is a channel, digital is a channel, SEO is a channel, television, radio channels, outdoor, billboard, bus backs, they're all just channels. The relevance of the message, the structure of that message, being based on some insight that helps you make sure you're telling the right story is absolutely applicable for day one and year 100. Same exact thing. Because it's all telling a story.
Absolutely perfect, my friend. I appreciate this so much. I'm furiously writing notes over here. Definitely want to continue our conversation in person since we're so
Yeah, we'll
close
go grab a beer since
over
you're
some
since you're in
beer.
the triangle, man. We'll go do it.
When is the Don't Win Dominate book coming out?
Actually, I'm working on that, but the thing that I think is going to precede it is an education series. I'd like to try to take this to something that people can use in their free time. And I've had so many people reach out and say, I've gotten more out of this TikTok channel than I did my college education. Like I've learned more here than I have there. And there have been hundreds of requests for, can you build something that, I can do as a class, that I can do in my own time, and I can like help. It also gives people a little anonymity to it. So if I'm a CMO at a company and I'm realizing that I don't know some of the things that I want to do, I don't want to just run up to the middle
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
thing
yeah,
and be
yeah.
like, hey, I have this question, and risk feeling like maybe I look dumb. So there's a lot there that we can share in that way. And that's kind of what we're looking at building right now.
Yeah, I think that's wise. That's a good choice. Man, I gotta say, I appreciate it so much, and I'm really proud of you for the success on TikTok, because I know a lot of people in your line of work or at your position may be hesitant to do that, right? On TikTok, it still gets that kind of expression like TikTok,
Yeah.
even though it's years later. But I'm pretty sure the success came from you doing exactly what you talked about today, which is just delivering value, being relevant, solving problems, and cutting through all the BS. So, well done, man. That's how I found you, honestly, coincidentally enough. And so, super proud of the stuff that you've been putting out.
Well,
And the
thank
people you've
you.
been
And I
helping.
can't tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity. If I can be a guest again or be helpful in any way, let me know. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be calling you 2 a.m., 3 a.m. anytime something pops in my head. I'll be texting you for advice. But yeah,
Sounds
we'll
good.
we'll do it again real soon, pal. Appreciate.